In the velvet-draped quiet of Ashworth Castle, the 6 a.m. sunlight did not dare to trespass. But in London, the press was already screaming. Arthur, the 14th Duke of Ashworth, was not a man who enjoyed the circus. He was a scholar, a man of dusty books and quiet histories, who had the misfortune of being born into a role that demanded flashbulbs and feigned smiles. This week, the circus was in full swing. "Duke ditches duty," the tabloids shrieked. His crime? He had diverted funds, his own funds, away from the annual, pointless Royal Regatta and towards the crumbling West Wing of the British Library, a place he actually cared about. The press, naturally, painted it as an insult to his grandmother, the Queen. He was tired of the performance, the expectations, the suffocating weight of a title he never asked for. So he did what any cornered, introverted, multi-millionaire duke would do. He ran. He booked a flight under the name A. Windsor, packed a single vintage leather bag, and took his most treasured possession, a 1968 Aston Martin DBS, shipped weeks prior. His plan was simple: drive the historic Route 66, disappear into the vast, anonymous heart of America, and for 1 month, just be Arthur. The plan worked perfectly for 3 days. On a sun-baked stretch of forgotten highway somewhere in the American Southwest, a deer, a creature of magnificent, idiotic timing, leapt directly into his path. Arthur swerved, his heart leaping into his throat. The vintage steel of the Aston Martin met the unforgiving gravel of the shoulder. A cloud of steam erupted from the hood. Silence. He stepped out of the car, his bespoke linen suit now wrinkled. The deer was gone. The car was not. He was, in the most technical sense, stranded. He checked his phone. No signal. He looked in his glove compartment, fumbling for the wallet he always kept there. It was gone. He must have left it in his suit jacket from the flight, the jacket that was now, presumably, being dry-cleaned back in his Chicago hotel. He was alone. He was penniless. And in the distance, under a shimmering heat haze, he saw a single wobbling sign: Harmony Creek, Pop 812. Harmony Creek was not having a harmonious day. Specifically, Chloe Davidson was not. The owner, operator, and chief bottle washer of the Harmony Spoon, the town's only diner, was in the weeds. Deep. The Harmony Spoon was her parents' legacy. It was chipped coffee mugs, vinyl booths cracked like old leather, and the best damn cherry pie in the state. It was also, as of this morning, a financial sinkhole threatening to pull her under. A corporate developer, Consolidated Holdings, had been sniffing around, offering insulting sums to buy her out, wanting to bulldoze her family's history for a soulless fast food franchise. And to make matters worse, Sal, her line cook for 10 years, had just thrown his apron on the floor over a disagreement about onion rings. Chloe shouted into the back, yelling that Sal couldn't just walk out on the Tuesday lunch rush. But Sal was already peeling out of the parking lot in his rusted-out pickup. Chloe kicked the swinging door, her face flush with sweat and rage. She was down a cook, the walk-in fridge was making a funny noise, and the developer's final, insulting offer was sitting on her desk, due by the end of the week. That's when he walked in. He was tall. He was, even covered in a fine layer of road dust, impeccably dressed. He looked, Chloe thought, like a man who had never seen the inside of a carburetor. He looked at the diner, at her diner, with a sort of detached academic curiosity, as if it were a museum exhibit he was being forced to attend. Arthur, for his part, was disoriented by the smell of frying oil and the jarringly cheerful sound of a jukebox playing a song about a tractor. He saw a woman behind the counter, her hair escaping a messy bun, a streak of flour on her cheek. She looked stressed. She looked authentic. He cleared his throat and stepped forward, addressing her as "my good woman." Chloe froze. She turned slowly, her hand still holding a now very hot coffee pot, and asked what he had just called her. Arthur, confused by her reaction, repeated the phrase. He explained that his vehicle had ceased functioning on the highway and that he required a mechanic and the immediate use of her telephone. The diner went silent. Old Man Hemlock, a regular, paused his fork halfway to his mouth. Chloe looked at Arthur's face, the perfect cheekbones, the earnest, slightly confused blue eyes, the sheer, unadulterated arrogance of it all. Ceased functioning? Require? My good woman? She slammed the pot down. In a voice dripping with disbelief, she asked if he was kidding her. She told Buddy to get in line. They were drowning there. She finished by saying they didn't require customers who talked like they were in a Shakespeare play. If he wanted a phone, it was on the wall for a quarter. If he wanted a mechanic, he'd have to wait his turn. Arthur had been admonished by prime ministers. He had been lectured by his grandmother, the Queen. He had never, in his entire 34 years, been spoken to like that. He was, for the first time in his life, utterly flabbergasted. He mistook her profound stress for astonishing rudeness. She mistook his formal, sheltered language for supreme, condescending arrogance. It was, in short, a perfect disaster. The town's only mechanic was a man named Gus, who operated out of a garage that looked like it was held together by rust and good intentions. He took one look at the Aston Martin and let out a low whistle. He identified it as a 68 DBS and told him he'd done a real number on this beauty. The radiator was cracked, a specialized part. He could get it from England, but it might take 2, maybe 3 weeks. Arthur found this unacceptable and asked about the cost. Gus spat some tobacco and told him that for a part that rare, shipped that fast, he was looking at about $5,000. Cash. He didn't take cards from Arthur. $5,000. Arthur had that much in change in the ashtray of his Bentley back home. But here, now, it was a king's ransom. He remembered his wallet, or lack thereof. He confessed that he seemed to have misplaced his wallet, his cards, everything. Gus's eyes narrowed. He marveled at the story a man who wrecked a $250,000 car but didn't have $5,000 to fix it. Humiliation. It was a new, acidic feeling for Arthur. He was a duke. He was the Duke. And he was being dismissed by a mechanic named Gus. He walked back to the diner, the heat baking his shame into his skin. The walk of shame ended back at the Harmony Spoon. He entered quieter this time. The lunch rush had died, leaving a trail of devastation. Dirty plates were piled everywhere. And Chloe was on the phone, her back to him, her voice cracking with desperation. She was pleading with a Mr. Henderson, telling him she wasn't selling. She just needed a week to find a new cook, begging him not to call the bank, refusing to sign his offer. She slammed the phone down, her shoulders slumping. She looked utterly defeated. Arthur stood in the doorway, an unwelcome observer to her private war. He saw her desperation, and in it, he saw an opportunity, a deeply, profoundly undignified opportunity. He swallowed what was left of his ducal pride. He addressed her simply as Miss. Chloe visibly flinched, wiping a tear from her eye angrily, and spun around. She recognized him and said she wasn't in the mood, asking if he'd found his mechanic. Arthur replied that he had. He stated that he required $5,000, and she, in turn, required a cook. Chloe stared at him. Then she laughed. It was not a nice laugh. It was a sharp, brittle sound of pure disbelief. She asked mockingly if he was a cook, guessing he'd studied at the King's Kitchen. Arthur stiffened. He informed her that he'd attended a 3-month intensive at Le Cordon Bleu in Paris and was more than proficient in classic French technique. He had, too. It was a gap year hobby between his degrees at Oxford and Yale. He'd wanted to understand the culinary history of the Ancien Regime. He had not, however, planned on it being a vocational skill. Chloe, wiping her eyes, said that was rich and perfect. She told him he was hired, 6 a.m. sharp. Then she sarcastically called him Your Highness. Arthur corrected her, stating it was Duke, actually. Chloe shot back that she didn't care if he was the King of England. 6 a.m., he'd be on dish duty. Her last dishwasher had quit for being too demanding, and she'd like to see how long a Paris-trained chef would last. Arthur's first day was not just a disaster. It was a comedy of errors, a symphony of chaos. The 6 a.m. sun was an insult. The industrial dishwasher, a machine he dubbed the Cerberus, was a hissing, steaming monster that seemed to have a personal vendetta against him. Brenda, the diner's veteran waitress, had to instruct him, calling him honey and telling him the rack went in the other way and that he had to spray the plates first. Arthur, holding the high-pressure sprayer, accidentally aimed it at a stack of menus. From the office, Chloe yelled, asking what that noise was and if he was pressure washing her menus. He broke 4 plates. He mistook the salt for the sugar and the tabletop shakers. He tried, with genuine, earnest effort, to reorganize the dish pit for what he called ergonomic efficiency. He suggested to Brenda that if they rerouted the flow of dirty dishes, they could shave 12 seconds off her time. Brenda, calling him sweetheart, informed him she'd been working that station for 30 years and that he should just put the plates in the machine. He was slow, he was meticulous, he was, in every conceivable way, the worst dishwasher in the history of Harmony Creek. By noon, he was soaked, his hands were red, and he was being silently judged by a rack of cooling pies. But he would not quit. A duke does not quit, he endures. His stubborn, aristocratic pride, the very thing that made him so unsuited for the job, was the only thing keeping him there. Chloe yelled from the kitchen window, calling for cordon bleu to get the dishes moving. She needed plates and told him to stop polishing the spoons and move. Arthur had never in his life wanted to strangle a good woman more. But then, the Sunday rush happened. Sundays at the Harmony Spoon were a local legend. After-church families, hungover college kids from the next town over. It was a tidal wave of orders. The temporary cook Chloe had hired, a nervous teenager named Skip, was visibly sweating, his hands shaking. He cried out that he couldn't handle the orders. 4 farmers' breakfasts, 2 sunrise specials, all with different eggs. The order tickets were piling up. Brenda was tapping her foot. Chloe was at the register, her face pale. From the dish pit, Arthur muttered that the cook was going to burn the hollandaise. Chloe just said, "What?" Arthur tore off his wet apron, his eyes flashing with a sudden intense fire. He strode from the dish pit, shoving a stunned Skip aside. He told the boy his heat was too high, and that he was whisking with his whole arm and would tire. It was all in the wrist. He then ordered Skip to poach the eggs, now. It was as if a different person had entered the kitchen. The slow, arrogant dishwasher was gone. In his place was a general. He moved with a speed and precision that was almost frightening. He barked at Brenda, asking for 2 hands and the order for table 4, declaring their 12-minute wait unacceptable. He cracked 6 eggs with 1 hand. His knife work on the home fries was a blur. He barked orders at Skip. who, terrified and impressed, suddenly became a competent assistant. And the food that came out of that kitchen was not diner food. It was art. The omelets were fluffy, light, a perfect pale yellow. The pancakes, he'd added a dash of cinnamon and vanilla extract he'd found in the back. The hollandaise was, as Old Man Hemlock later declared, a religious experience. The diner, for the first time in a week, was quiet, but it was the happy, sated quiet of people eating. Chloe stood at the pass, speechless. She watched him, his face a mask of intense concentration, a droplet of sweat on his temple. He wasn't the arrogant buddy from the roadside. He wasn't the clumsy dishwasher. He was magnificent. The rush ended. Arthur, breathing heavily, leaned against the counter. He looked at the chaos he had conquered, then at Chloe. He stated simply, "The dish pit requires my attention." And he walked back, leaving a trail of stunned silence in the lingering, beautiful scent of perfectly cooked bacon. We're just getting to the good part, but if you're enjoying the story of Arthur and Chloe, do me a small favor and hit that subscribe button. It's free, and it means you'll never miss an update. Okay, back to Harmony Creek. The dynamic shifted. Chloe, realizing she had a culinary genius trapped in her dish pit, reluctantly promoted him to line cook. The food quality skyrocketed. But the diner was still bleeding money. One night, Chloe was at her usual corner booth, her head in her hands, the diner's ledger books spread out like a sentence of doom. She was crying, silent tears of frustration tracing paths through the flour on her cheeks. Arthur, who had been cleaning the flat top, paused. He had been taught that one does not intrude on a lady's private grief. He had also been taught that one does not allow a problem to fester. He walked over, a dish towel in his hand. He addressed her, first as Miss Davidson, then as Chloe. He stated, bluntly, that crying would not balance the books. Chloe snapped her head up, asking what he would know about it, and telling him to go back to polishing whatever it is he polished. Arthur ignored her. He told her that, at a glance, her food cost was approximately 10% too high for her volume, that she was being robbed, or at the very least severely overcharged. Chloe stared at him. He casually picked up an invoice from her produce supplier. He questioned the price. $20 for a case of heirloom tomatoes that were, by his estimation, simple Roma. He called it thievery. He asked, "Who is Cisco?" Chloe explained they were the only supplier who would drive out this far and that she'd used them for years. Arthur replied that they were taking advantage of her. He asked for her permission, but before she could answer, he had picked up her cell phone. He dialed the supplier's number and put it on speaker. His voice dropped, the British accent suddenly becoming less charming and more lethal. He introduced himself as Arthur, the new kitchen manager at the Harmony Spoon. He was holding her last invoice, he said, and he was perplexed. He asked if they were running a supply company or a criminal enterprise, calling the markup on their dairy alone audacious. For 20 minutes, Chloe watched, mesmerized, as Arthur, her arrogant cordon bleu dishwasher, calmly, logically, and ruthlessly dismantled the supplier's entire pricing structure. He quoted market rates. He referenced agricultural reports. He used terms like fungible commodities and logistical inefficiencies. By the end, the regional manager on the other end was apologizing, profusely. Arthur ended the call. He informed Chloe that the manager would be sending a revised contract and a rebate for the last quarter. She should see a 15% reduction in cost, effective immediately. Then he added that the wobbly table in booth 4 was a disgrace. He didn't just help with the books, he fixed things. The wobbly table was secured. The antique jukebox, which hadn't worked in years, was humming with life after he tinkered with it. He reorganized the entire walk-in freezer by quadrant and food group. Chloe didn't know what to do. She was, for the first time in her life, impressed and confused. Who was this man? This arrogant, brilliant, infuriating man who could cook like an angel and negotiate like a demon. The annual Harmony Creek Town Fair was the biggest event of the year. Chloe, as was tradition, ran the diner's food stall. This year, she had a secret weapon. She teased him, asking if he was seriously afraid of a Ferris wheel. Arthur denied being afraid. He was merely suspicious of any structure assembled in one day by men who appeared to be missing teeth. He was, however, surprisingly charming at the stall. He'd created a diner dog using a brioche bun and a homemade aioli. They sold out in an hour. He was polite, he was witty. The older ladies of the town were, to put it mildly, obsessed. Mabel, the town matriarch, gushed to Chloe, asking wherever she had found him. She said he was like a young Hugh Grant, but with better posture. As the sun set, casting the fair in a warm golden light, Chloe finally convinced him to ride the Ferris wheel. At the very top, the carriage swayed, overlooking the entire town. Arthur, gripping the bar with his eyes closed, declared the situation profoundly unsafe. Chloe laughed, telling Your Highness to relax and just look. He opened his eyes. The town was spread out below them, a patchwork of lights and laughter. It was beautiful. Chloe told him this is it. This was her town, what she was fighting for. Arthur clarified, the developer, Consolidated Holdings. Chloe confirmed. She said they just see undeveloped land, not the history or the people. Her parents had poured their souls into that diner. It was all she had left of them, and now she was going to lose it. Her voice was quiet. The bravado was gone. Arthur looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the strength and the vulnerability she tried so hard to hide. He told her, with quiet conviction, you won't lose it. Chloe was skeptical. She said he didn't know what it was like to have his entire life hanging by a thread, all because of money. Arthur quietly agreed. He supposed he didn't. His family had the opposite problem. They were crushed by the weight of what they had. Crushing expectations, a life laid out before he was even born. He confessed that sometimes he wished he could just be useful, fix a wobbly table, make a good meal, and have it mean something. They looked at each other. The music from the fair drifted up to them. It was a moment of pure, unguarded honesty. It was easy. It was natural. And as the Ferris wheel began its descent, Arthur had the strangest, most terrifying urge to kiss her. He didn't, but the thought, once it had entered, refused to leave. The thaw, having begun, was now a full-on meltdown. They worked side by side, a well-oiled machine. They bickered still. Chloe would tell him it's cherry pie, not a deconstructed cherry tart with a balsamic reduction, warning that their customers would have a heart attack. Arthur would simply reply that his version was better. But the bickering was different now. It was fond. It was the language of two people who were, undeniably, falling for each other. The breaking point came, as it always does, from the outside world. A British tabloid journalist, Nigel, was bored. The Duke in hiding story had gone cold. He'd been reduced to writing about a minor royal's new corgi. Then he got a tip, an American Express high alert. The Duke's card, the one he hadn't lost, had been used for an emergency helicopter fuel-up in Chicago, followed by nothing. But the car, the '68 Aston Martin, had been flagged by a customs tracker. Its final destination? A repair shop in the middle of nowhere, Harmony Creek. Nigel booked a flight. He walked into the Harmony Spoon expecting, he didn't know what. A duke hiding in a luxury cabin, maybe? He did not expect to see the 14th Duke of Ashworth, Arthur James Henry Windsor, in a flour-dusted apron, laughing as he expertly flipped a pancake, a laugh directed at the pretty, tired-looking woman at the register. Nigel's camera flash was like a gunshot in the quiet diner. "Well, well, well," he shouted. "His Grace, the Duke of Ashworth, hiding out as a short-order cook? My goodness." He aimed the camera at a stunned Chloe. "And is this your new American bride? Commoner Chloe snags a duke? Oh, that's front-page gold." The world stopped. Chloe's blood ran cold. She looked at the flashing camera, then at Arthur. His face was white. "Duke?" The word came out as a whisper. Nigel was ecstatic. "Oh, she didn't know? Oh, this is even better." He explained to Chloe who Arthur was. The Duke of Ashworth, 14th in line to the throne, one of the richest men in England. He taunted Arthur, asking if he was playing poor, a bit of poverty tourism, to wash the stench of duty off. Chloe looked at Arthur, and in that one devastating second, everything clicked into place. The cordon bleu, the Oxford economics, the arrogance, the family business with crushing expectations. He hadn't been honest. He'd been slumming it. Her voice trembling, low and furious. She accused him of lying to her every day. She said he'd let her believe he was like her, broke and stuck. He'd let her tell him about her parents, about the diner. She asked if it was all just a game to him, a little holiday from his castle. Arthur tried to deny it. "Chloe, no," he pleaded. He said it started that way, but begged her to let him explain. Chloe cut him off. "Explain what?" she spat. "That he was a duke and she was just the good woman he told his royal friends about? The idiot who fell for it?" The diner door burst open. Two large men in dark suits, Arthur's security team, alerted by the journalists' social media, stormed in. They announced, "Your Grace, we're here, we'll handle this." They grabbed Arthur, trying to hustle him towards the door. He struggled, yelling Chloe's name, insisting it wasn't a lie, not the important parts. But Chloe had turned her back. Her shoulders were shaking. She was wiping her eyes. But this time, it was pure, unadulterated rage. Without turning around, she told him to get out. "Get out of my diner." Arthur stopped struggling. The security men pulled him, but he just stared at her back, saying her name one more time. Chloe screamed, "I said, get out!" He was hustled out the door, the bell chiming mockingly behind him. He was bundled into a black SUV that had materialized out of nowhere. As they sped away, he looked back. His last image of Harmony Creek was a neon sign that read, "The Harmony Spoon," and the silhouette of a woman standing alone in a diner that was no longer hers. Ashworth Castle was cold. It was, Arthur realized, always cold. He was back in his proper life. The scandal of his disappearance had been replaced by the scandal of his diner days. The press was having a field day. He had expected relief, to be back in his world, surrounded by priceless art, with servants to anticipate his every need. Instead, he was miserable. He sat in the 10,000-volume library, but he couldn't read. All he could think about was the smell of stale coffee and industrial-strength bleach. He sat at a dining table set for 20, eating a meal prepared by a Michelin-starred chef, but all he wanted was one of Chloe's 2 sweet cherry pies. He had tried to control his life by running from it. He had tried to protect himself, and in doing so, he had, with surgical precision, destroyed the only real thing he had ever found. He had become a duke again, but he had stopped being Arthur. Back in Harmony Creek, Chloe was a ghost. The diner was open, but the lights were dim. The developer Mr. Henderson had heard about the incident. He knew she was alone, that her genius cook was gone. He'd sent a new offer. It was somehow even more insulting. The foreclosure notice was taped to her front door. She had 48 hours. She was sitting in the dark diner long after closing, staring at the foreclosure notice. She hated him. She hated him. She hated that she missed the way he argued with her about Basil. She hated that she missed the sound of his quiet, aristocratic laugh. She hated more than anything that he had been right. She was going to lose it all. The bell on the diner door chimed. Chloe didn't even look up. She muttered that they were closed and she wasn't selling, telling Henderson to go away. A voice replied, "He's not here, but I am." Chloe's head snapped up. It was Arthur. He was not the disheveled backpacker. He was not the harried line cook. He was the Duke of Ashworth. He wore a perfectly tailored suit. His hair was perfect. His shoes cost more than her truck. But his eyes were terrified. Chloe told him she had ordered him to get out. Arthur admitted she had. He'd found, he said, that he wasn't very good at listening to her. He walked slowly towards her booth. He did not sit. He stood, like a defendant awaiting a verdict. He told her he came back, commercially. He'd flown into Albuquerque, and it had been dreadful. The legroom was appalling. Chloe let out a small, involuntary snort of a laugh, which she quickly smothered. She asked what he wanted, Your Grace. Had he come back to laugh at the peasant? She told her diner was being foreclosed on tomorrow. He won. The rich guy wins. She begged him to just go. Arthur's voice was low. He said he was so very sorry for lying. He'd been hiding from his life. He'd been a coward, and in his cowardice, he had hurt her. He called it unforgivable. Chloe agreed. Yes, it is. He continued, insisting he had not lied about the important things, not about the joy he found in fixing that absurdly wobbly table, not about the profound satisfaction of her cherry pie, and he had not lied about this. He looked at her, and the carefully constructed mask of the Duke crumbled. It was just Arthur, her Arthur. He told her he loved her. "I love you, Chloe Davidson," he said. He'd loved her since she called him Buddy and threatened him with a coffee pot. He loved her stubbornness. He loved her pie. He loved that she had built this home all by herself. Chloe was crying, but she didn't know why. She whispered that it was too late. The diner was gone. Henderson would win tomorrow at noon. Arthur gave a small smile. "Yes, about that. I've been tinkering again." He placed a heavy briefcase on the table. He did not open it. He said he could buy this town. He could write her a check and she could buy 1,000 diners. But that wasn't what they were, was it? He wasn't that man, not anymore. And she would never accept it. Chloe confirmed that no, she wouldn't. "So I did what you would do," he said. "I worked." He opened the briefcase. It wasn't full of money. It was full of books. Old, dusty-looking books and binders. He explained. This was Harmony Creek, founded 1884. The diner, the Harmony Spoon, wasn't built in the 1950s. The foundation was laid in 1884. It was the original town land office. As such, it was eligible, as was the entire Main Street, for the National Historic Preservation Grant. He had taken the liberty of filing the paperwork. His family, he admitted, had some pull with the Historical Society. It had been approved that morning. Chloe whispered, asking what that meant. He explained. It meant Mr. Henderson could not bulldoze the building. It was now a protected landmark. It meant Henderson was furious. Arthur had spoken to him, and he used some very colorful language. It also meant she had access to federal funds for restoration, if she wanted them. He hadn't just bought her a solution, he had researched one. He had used his unique, infuriating, brilliant mind, and he had saved her. Chloe, tears streaming down her face, asked if he had done all that for her? I did it for us, he replied. But I have a condition. Chloe was instantly wary, asking, a condition? He confirmed, yes, I'm investing as your partner. But I am told the new line cook is arrogant, difficult, thinks he knows everything, and he refuses to work for anyone else. He's also quite expensive. Chloe stood up. She walked around the booth until she was standing right in front of him. She asked, "Oh, really? And what does this partner want?" Arthur, the 14th Duke of Ashworth, looked at the woman who owned his heart. He wants to learn how to make your cherry pie. She laughed. She cried. And then she kissed him. She kissed him in the middle of her diner, under the flickering neon light, with the smell of old coffee and a new future hanging in the air. 6 months later, the Harmony spoon reopened. It was beautiful. The original 1884 brickwork was exposed. The vinyl booths were gone, replaced by rich dark wood. But the coffee mugs were still chipped, and the jukebox still played songs about tractors. They'd renamed it. A small brass plaque on the door read, "The Duke's Spoon, a Harmony Creek Bistro." Inside, it was packed. Old Man Hemlock was arguing with Mabel about the new, delicious scones. Brenda was running orders, her feet barely touching the ground. And in the kitchen, a new, gleaming, state-of-the-art kitchen, stood Chloe, calling orders. 2 farmers' breakfasts, 1 royal omelet, on the fly. And on the line, in the cleanest, most expensive-looking apron money could buy, stood Arthur. He was sweating. He was stressed. He was, for the first time in his entire privileged, chaotic life, perfectly, completely, and utterly happy. He plated the omelet, slid it onto the pass, and leaned over. He whispered that table 4 was complaining. They had said the pie was too sweet. Chloe leaned in, kissing him over the order window. She told him it was tough. He should tell them. The good woman said so. And that's the story of the Duke and the diner. What do you think? Should Arthur have told Chloe the truth earlier? Let me know what you think of their story in the comments below. We read every single one. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next story.